It is around 9:30, February 16th. So we'll call the county board meeting to order this time. I would ask the clerk please take the roll, and it looks like that has been accomplished.
Supervisor Clendenning, can you confirm that you're here?
Thank you.
Thank you. And then at this time we would call on Supervisor Zerflu, our designated invocator, to please come forward for the invocation. I'd ask the body to please rise and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey Joe, need a match?
I have good news and bad news. The invocation is 15 minutes long. The good news, it's Lent, so I'm not allowed to have bingo today. However, we will be gathering at 1 o'clock in the auditorium for a fish fry. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
What happens if you're not Catholic? Fish fry is fish fry.
Please bow your heads. Let's take a moment of silence, please. Holy Triune God, we praise you this morning and ask for your blessing upon us. We ask that you help us to be quick to listen to other views, slow to speak, and then only after reflect on what we should say. And when we speak, let it not be in an accusatory manner. Let us always have the interests of the residents of Wood County at heart in the decisions we make, and not our own special agendas. Father of all, send your protective blessings to our sons and daughters serving in our armed forces, especially those serving overseas and in particular in the Middle East. May they all be home soon to their families. Bless also the families of our county supervisors, especially those who are ill. May those who have recently had surgery continue to improve in health. May we always look for the good in our fellow man, and as St. Paul tells us, say only the good things men and women need to hear, things that will really help them. And we ask this of you, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor Zerflu, and those words are something we should heed. You haven't done anything but listen to the news the last few days with the passing of Supreme Court Justice Scalia. You've heard that he can agreeably disagree on issues and was best friends with people on the other side of the aisle, and that has certainly been at the forefront of news the last few days. I guess the first thing we have to do is take care of the minutes from the previous session. So I have a motion by Hamilton and a second by Fire to approve those. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval, please signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed, and that motion carries. Today we have Supervisor Minor excused. He's running the elections in his little part of the world over there. Resignations, we have none. Appointments, none. And reappointments, none. Do we have any public comment today? Any public comment today's meeting? Okay, I see none there. Acknowledgements and recognitions, we have none. We do have a couple special orders of business today. One's an update on the River Block building. The other one is by Regional Dean of the UW Colleges, Dr. Keith Montgomery. And Keith had asked for this opportunity. We certainly will honor that request at any time, and I see him in the back of the room seated. So I think we're going to take him first so we can go back and do what deans do. So if you come forward, Doctor, and the podium is yours.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I know it was student, but I don't know what the password is. I titled the presentation UW College's Changes in Administration. But it's about a little bit more than just administrative changes. It's also about some other changes that we've made as well. And the reason I wanted to come this morning and talk with you is because Wood County, along with the city of Marshfield, has a substantial investment in the university. And of course, so grateful for the fact you've also made an investment in the new STEM building that I know you are going to love when you see it. But I wanted to be absolutely certain that you understood the kind of changes that have taken place. I'm sure that there's been various communications that have occurred in the past several months, and I just wanted to put them in one place and put them before you, because I think that's absolutely what you deserve as a county board. And so I've titled it Changes in Administration, but there's a few more changes I'm going to talk about as well. Just going to start briefly with this map and move on, and we'll come back to it. But this is a kind of a visual of one aspect of the changes that we've made, which is a regionalization of the campuses. And I suppose to some extent I stand here embodying that as a regional executive officer for the North region. And you can see that the 13 campuses have been divided up into 4 regions, and the North region is the largest geographically. And it also contains 4 campuses rather than 3. I'll just remind you, 13 is a prime number. You can't divide it evenly. So there's always going to have to be one region that's larger than the others, and it's been chosen to be the North. I'd also like to point out that the colors there just sort of gather in the 4 campuses, but that's not necessarily our region. We draw in students from counties to the north and also counties to the south and west as well. We also draw in some students from internationally, from Korea, Vietnam, and China. But absolute overwhelming majority of students, of course, are from Marshfield and Wood County. I don't want to, first of all, talk about why did we change? Why did we change administration in some of our business practices? We changed because of a budget reduction. Actually, really 2 budget reductions. In the current biennium, the general purpose revenue subsidy to the UW system has been cut by $125 million. That's a base budget cut, and that of course continues. It would be 250 over the biennium, but continue to give, so to speak, for years to come, I'm sure. But also in the previous biennium, there was a $62.5 million cut to the UW system as well. So it's really an accumulation of effects here. But in this current biennium, it's a 12% reduction in GPR. I know people have sliced and diced that and spun it in different ways, but it's unambiguously a 12% reduction in GPR subsidy to the UW system. There's also been a decrease in high school graduating classes across the state. That hasn't so much been the case in Marshfield and Wood County and Rapids and other communities, but in other parts of the state it's been substantial. In the central part of Marathon County, between about 2010 and coming up in 2017, that will be close to a 20% reduction in high school graduating classes. And of course, that's just demography. It's sort of the end of the echo boom or the echo of the echo or whatever, but that's what's happening. There's nothing we can do about that. But given the fact that if you look at our core budget, our core educational budget, so setting aside auxiliaries such as food services and residence halls and so on, 60% of our core educational budget now comes from tuition. 15 years ago, 60% came from GPR. Now it's 60% from tuition. So as student numbers decline, as they are in the UW system as a whole, that's an immediate loss in revenue. Of course, as student numbers go down, you immediately lose revenue, but you don't necessarily cut classes, because even a 10% or even a 20% reduction in enrollment in a class is not enough to actually cancel a class. So if you're going to make any adjustments in staffing, they would tend to kind of go like this, but in the meantime, your revenues are falling immediately. So that's a pressure that's on all UW systems and across the entire UW colleges. Not so much a pressure in Marshfield and Wood County. There are some reasons, other reasons for us to change though. We talked about some of these reasons internally in the last biennium and even before the last biennium, that when you've got a system of 13 campuses, maybe there's some better practices that we could adopt anyway. The only thing is, when you're making radical change, it's kind of hard to persuade people to make radical change, but when your back is against the wall, when you're really facing budget reductions, then it's actually easier to make changes that make sense. So we're gaining some benefits from centralized services, or maybe consolidated services would be a better way of putting it. I'll just give you one example. Every campus handled its own admissions, and maybe that was a 25% position. Maybe it was a 50% position. We've gathered all of those up to create a kind of a back office statewide with just 4 admissions specialists. And those 4 specialists are trained to a high level to provide absolutely the best service to students, to high school counselors, to parents. So actually what we've done is we've saved money by making ourselves more efficient, by creating a back office instead of having lots of pieces out there. And at the same time, we've actually raised their game. I know a lot of people are suspicious of centralization of services and consolidation and so on, but actually you can raise your game. We've done the same thing in student communications as well. You might think you should be local in student communications. Each campus should do its own thing, but not every campus was doing the best thing. So we've now actually consolidated student communications so they get absolutely the right message at absolutely the right time in their career through the first semester and through the first 2 or 3 years on our campuses. So we've actually done some best practices. I also like the fact that we've created some uniform staffing. Each campus over the last 50 years kind of reinvented the wheel, created its own staffing, and that meant that new initiatives could not take root. Because someone would say, well, we can't do it here because this person's 25%, we can't do it there because that same person's 50%. Now we have uniform staffing across the colleges. It's a lot easier to create new change so that when new resources start to flow into the colleges, we will be able to take full advantage of it. And then we've done the same thing regionally as well. We're sharing resources across the region. We're sharing practices across the region. For example, we're sharing curriculum across campuses as well. So this is the most visible aspect of what we've done. I titled my talk Changes in Administration, but I've given you, I think, a little bit of insight there when we talk about things like communications and admissions, and it's really about just more than administration. There's some other changes that we're making as well within the system and on individual campuses. But I put this slide up here to emphasize one thing, that each individual campus is not losing its identity. It will still be the University of Wisconsin, Marshfield, Wood County, and at all the other campuses as well within the system. So we're not changing our identity. In fact, I was just thinking, I can't really imagine the circumstances. There would be some circumstances in which I might put something out under UW College's North letterhead, for example, but by and large, to a large extent, I think particularly students and on the ground are still going to see their own UW in their own community and their own county. We're not creating UW colleges and doing away with the individual campus identities. They will still remain strong within the system. So if you just look at administration, this is the administration that we had at our campuses. I put them in roughly geographical order here from west to east. So each campus had a dean. Pat Stewart was the last single dean, for example, at UW-Marshfield, Wood County. Each campus had an associate dean for academic affairs. That was a faculty member who was half-time administrator. Edie Adam was that person in Marshfield, Wood County. An assistant campus dean for student affairs, perhaps you've met or know of Brittany Leith, who was the assistant dean for student affairs in Marshfield, Wood County. And then the assistant campus dean for admin and finance was Michelle Bornke at Marshfield, Wood County. We sort of replicated that structure. That's what we did in the history of the colleges, is we replicated things 13 times over, which I think really led to some inefficiencies, as I said, as well. So the new structure, we've got 4 campuses in the north, so we actually have an additional position. I'll talk about the benefit of that in just a second. But you have a regional executive officer and dean. You have a single associate dean for academic affairs across the entire region. Because we have 4 campuses, we have 2 associate deans for student affairs, one shared between Marshfield and Barron County and Rice Lake, and one shared between Marathon County and Wausau and Marinette. And then we have a single associate dean for admin and finance. That is a huge advantage. It seems interesting to see these big distances. You get 4 campuses instead of 3, but we get to share our associate deans for student affairs between 2 campuses in our region, not between 3 campuses. So it's one advantage that we have, and I think it's a big advantage actually to be sharing that between. It's a big difference between sharing it between 2 campuses as opposed to sharing it between 3 campuses. You can see where some of the savings are coming here. We're going from in just this region alone, we're going from 14 FTE to 5 FTE on the administration side. Unbelievable. And it's working well, and it's been working since January the 4th. It's been working for a month, and it's been working really well. Of course, we've been working really hard, but we've been finding more efficient ways of doing things, and there's other changes in behind us as well, which have helped. This change in FTE, of course, is also being found in other positions across the colleges as well. 85 positions have been eliminated in the colleges. People haven't been shuffled around. 85 positions have been eliminated. The colleges always were a very lean organization. We didn't have any unfilled positions in the base, as many other institutions had. You just eliminate that position that nobody was in anyway and say you lost a position, but you hadn't actually lost a job in a community. 85 jobs have been lost in the UW colleges as a result of this. So it certainly is significant. But I'll tell you, I'm very proud of the UW colleges. No other system, no other institution in the UW has reinvented itself as the UW colleges has. It is a sea change. And I think some other institutions are going to find that their backs are going to be up against the wall really fast in the next 2 or 3 years if they haven't made the types of changes that we've made. So I'm going to put some names here. I'm sorry I don't have any faces except my own. But other than myself, Michelle Bornke, who many of you know, is going to be the Regional Associate Dean for Admin and Finance. And she's also going to be the campus administrator at Marshfield Wood County, which means that she's responsible for the daily management of operations on the campus. Brittany Leaf, some of you might have known her. She was the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs. She is now the Associate Regional Dean for the West, between Marshfield and Rice Lake, for Student Affairs, and she moved to Rice Lake. She is the campus administrator at Rice Lake. Jayant Anand is the regional administrator, is the campus administrator at Wausau, and he's also the regional associate dean for academic affairs. And Cindy Bailey is dividing her time between Marathon, Wausau, and Marinette as the associate regional dean east for student affairs. So that's the administration team, but there's many other changes have taken place on campus as well as we've made some other changes. We've regionalized some positions. Continuing ed is getting a regional director. Marketing and communications is getting regionalized. Financial processing is getting regionalized as well. So we're not necessarily going to have somebody in every campus that's doing financial processing. We're gathering those up into the region and consolidating to some extent. So I've talked about consolidation that's taken place. And we've also created what I'm calling here some lean processes on campus as well. You know, UW-MC, if you came to student affairs, you had to get a piece of paper and you had to walk up to the other end of the campus to the business office to get some business service on that. Then you had to walk back to student affairs. Let's put it all in one place, eh? And then by changing some financial processing, we can eliminate a position there as well. So actually more positions have been eliminated behind the scenes than have been eliminated through a simply administrative change as well. So the title of my talk was Changes in Administration. I hope I'm giving you some sense that there's been some other major changes that have taken place as well in the way in which we do business and work with our students and with our stakeholders. You know, I could talk for a long time. I usually talk in 50-minute bites, but, and more, but that's a flavor of some of the changes that we've made. So.
Dean, you've been able to pretty much leave the academic staff intact?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. The academic staff, the faculty have been left intact, and curriculum has been left intact as well. So all of these, that's another thing that's been tough too. All of these changes have been coming out of one side of the house, so to speak.
Yes, sir. And I guess my question is that I agree that the budget cuts aren't just immediate. They will have a residual effect down the line. Do you expect to see changes in academic staffing, like such things like distance learning, virtual classrooms, that sort of thing? Do you expect to see that kind of thing in the future?
Yeah, one of the things that we can do, by the way, it's a cut to the base. It's going to continue to be there, but we've made our cuts. So we're in a good place right now. As far as curriculum goes, one of the advantages of having a region is one of the first things I did is I looked at the timetables on the 4 different campuses, and they all have different timetables. So I'm not saying you're going to offer Sociology 101 at 10 o'clock on every campus, but they all have different timetable blocks, which makes it very difficult to coordinate any sharing of courses. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to put the timetable blocks into the same system under the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and then we'll be set up to do a lot more sharing of courses. And the sharing of courses, I think, might marginally shift some positions out of academics, but I think the big change there is we'll actually get to offer a broader curriculum on each campus by real-time video. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. I really appreciate the update, and I think it's not only an education for the board, but also for the people that are listening on our TV, because we have a feeder. I mean, Wisconsin Rapids, a lot of people drive up to UW-Marshfield, Wood County to go there. But I have a couple of comments and not really a question. But you mentioned maintaining some kind of identity. We have a foundation at UW-Marshfield, Wood County, and the discussion at the last foundation meeting is how the foundations are going to have to step up to the plate to help with that individual identity on each campus. And people need to know that support of the campus and the things that we do through the foundation are one way of maintaining that individuality on the individual campuses throughout the regions. And I felt that we really needed to say that, because that's an important part of supporting the campus in some ways where the budget cuts are going to take place. The other thing that we have heard, and I want to express my appreciation both to the City of Marshfield and to Wood County for their commitment in the STEM building, and some people have made statements that because these enrollment numbers are down and we're not seeing the same number, do we really need a facility like that because we're not utilizing it with as many students? Well, I am a nursing instructor, and so we get a lot of our students from UW-Marshfield, Wood County for their general educational requirements. They come into our program, and we certainly want to maintain the quality of nursing students that come into our program so we can maintain the quality of care that people get when they go into the hospital and go to other healthcare facilities. So even though numbers are down, they still require excellent education and a good foundation for those STEM professions. And as a nurse, I know how important it is to lay a good foundation with the sciences. And so I really appreciate the commitment that people have made to our STEM building. And we have just as much responsibility to educate them in a high quality way. Just because the numbers are down doesn't mean that they don't deserve excellent facilities to get their education.
Absolutely. Total numbers are now just the same as they were 10 years ago at Marshfield, Wood County. That's not the case at all campuses of the UW or the UW colleges. I totally agree with your comments about the foundations, and the foundations will retain their identities on each campus and will continue to connect the campuses to the communities as they do, and it's something that we very much appreciate. As far as STEM education goes, teaching in the Eau Claire program, the value of technology. because you have really one campus in two locations between Marshfield and Eau Claire, and that Marshfield site at the ministry really provides a fantastic opportunity for students at Marshfield, Wood County, and I also see it also in Marathon County as well. I know it's an ambition for many healthcare providers in the region and across the state to have a higher percentage of their staff BSRN nurses, liberal arts educated BSRN nurses. So I really appreciate those comments. As far as the science facilities are concerned, if you wanted to come and look at the chemistry labs, they're 50 years old. I'd be very happy to give you a tour if you have any doubts at what 50-year-old chemistry labs look like. Pedagogy has changed enormously in the last 50 years. Ideas of what it is that students should be learning in class have expanded to more than just content. And it makes a difference as to the physical layout of the building. I mean, even in this room in discussion, the physical layout makes a difference in discussion, right? It could be combined perhaps in different ways. So we really are in need of expanded and redesigned classroom space in chemistry and biology, and also space that will allow us to do more distance education as well, and bring other opportunities into the campus and maintain our strength and some opportunities as well. So I very much appreciate your comments and appreciate your question as well.
Good morning, Dean. Good morning, Dean. Having been in a position that you folks are in right now, state budgets and enrollments are always a big factor in everything. And you mentioned that the last two bienniums have been shrinking. How do you feel about the next biennium, and how do you feel about the next enrollments?
For Marshfield, Wood County, looking ahead, the enrollments look steady. I mean, it's pretty predictable based on who's in grade 1 right now. There's some folks move in and out, of course, but if you look at classes, certainly over the next 5 years or so, it's going to be steady. As far as the next biennium goes, I mean, the message that I've received, and it's really up to the Chancellor, of course, who represents the institution, but I think the message I've understood for the UW is just ask us for one or two things, not a whole menu of things. Let's keep it simple, and I think if the UW maintained its GPR commitment for the next biennium, I think the UW would be pleased at that.
I think you folks have done a masterful job in taking care of the administration part of it, but you know as well as anyone that you can only go so far, and this is what concerns me. I mean, you can shrink the FTE on the administration part just so far, and where do you go from there then?
Well, I think there's still some. Yeah, we're pretty thin now. I mean, that's probably the wrong word to use. I mean, I think we're now as efficient. That's a good word. As efficient as we can be right now. I think it would be just very hypothetical and speculative of me to say if we had to make another $5 million cut, what would we do? I think probably we'd have to look at some of the programs that we offer. No question about that. I mean, I can't lie about that, but there may be ways in which even those could be offered. But you know what? Right now we've made the cuts we have to make. In a way I think that no other institution has. We're within our base, and I think we're going to make this work, and we'll let the Chancellor work her magic in Madison and maintain our GPR base. We'll work hard at recruiting and competition with other UWs for students and technical colleges. There's no question about that, and that's good. And we'll take the next biennium as it comes.
Any other questions? Comments? Again, Dr. Montgomery, I want to thank you for coming up today. I will reiterate the capital drive. We've had tremendous commitment from the private sector in regard to that STEM facility, but we're still taking donations. So there's a plea up there. Be happy, I'm sure you'd be happy to take some back with you, or see Doug or Don or Al, and they'll steer you in the right direction.
Thank you so much for all the time that you've given me, and also thanks to Cindy and for getting my computer up and running. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll get into the packet here in just a second. You know, I think, well, Bill Clendenning had to listen to me the other day, unless you saw that I was getting up and he walked out in the hall. But sometimes when we look at problems, I almost have to chuckle a little bit, because I'm sure the politicians that have passed those great leaders in our country probably are somewhere up above laughing at us. You know, 155 years ago we had a civil war that tore the country apart. We put it back together, and about 70 years ago we had a world war that tore the world apart. The U.S. put the country back together. In 2001 we were attacked at the World Trade Center. We found the wherewithal to take back what was taken from us. And I would guess when they hear we have insurmountable problems, that it's never been this bad before. It almost has to be funny. We constantly deal with these problems. That's what we do as boards. So I'm sure we'll, you know, work as hard as we can to bridge all those shortfalls and make those things continue. But it is not as bad as it has ever been. So hopefully we can spin that to the bright side. All right, back into the packet, page 9. First of all, page 2 in your packet was referrals. There's 6 of them. They went to all the appropriate committees and or people. Page 9 in your packet is the executive committee minutes of Tuesday, January 19th. Same committee minutes of February 2nd at 10. Supervisor Lynch.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to talk about the architect situation. My mother always told me that common sense wasn't so common. And that's what I'm thinking we're running into here. I don't see a reason. Well, first of all, we spent $70,000 on a study for our space needs. Now we want to spend $43,000 to help us with a moving plan. I think we can do this on our own. Attorney Wrigley and his maintenance department has been remodeling and maintaining the courthouse and our other buildings for years and doing an excellent job. So personally, I don't see any reason for spending all this money on architects. As an example, with that building, it was built for 400 offices, functioned as 400 offices. I don't understand why we need all of this so-called professional help. Thank you.
You want me to speak to that?
Sure. Supervisor Rosa or Supervisor Wagner, I know you comment.
Do you want to go first, Ed?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know, we had this big discussion, and when we had our committee, the discussion was that we felt very strongly that Venture Architects, with the history that they had with working with us in the past, had the expertise and wouldn't have to be brought up to speed a whole lot with this. I don't believe we spent $70,000 on that. I think it was about $40,000 on that original. No, it was not that much. They had a lot of information under there from that original space needs implementation. There are things that are going to be needed in that building that are going to require engineering and architectural and expertise. While our maintenance department has done a really good job, they don't have the expertise to know about putting the bathrooms in, and we really want the departments that are moving in there to move into as efficient a space as possible with as much thought. Even which departments to go in there and how best to lay out that square footage to use that space as cost effectively and as efficiently as possible. And we all believed that we needed the expertise of people that were smarter than we are to make sure that we do it right.
Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Lynch made his presentation, it reminded me, I tried to think of an analogy, and I guess the analogy was the old story about the guy that, well, some of us remember in the old days you used to call TV repairmen come over to your house. You can just throw it away. But anyway, the guy had a problem with the TV. The TV repairman came, he looked at the TV, he looked at it, he kicked it, and went back on. And he handed the guy a bill for $150. And the guy says, well, why $150? He said, well, 50 bucks was for kicking it, and the other, well, the 100 was for knowing where to kick it. Basically, that's what an architect is going to do. We know, for instance, that There, you know, yeah, we could send all the departments over there and let them fight it out, and we lock them in a room and let them fight it out of what space they need and where they're going to get it. We could do that. We could end up with a hodgepodge, or we could end up with an orderly move and a way of figuring out where the new bathrooms are going to go. Bathrooms are something we know are going to be needed there. We know there's going to need to be some handicapped access. We are going to need the professional help to do it. Short, Mr. Wentz, we need somebody to tell us where to kick it. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Clendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the supervisor indicated, our committee come up with this idea. The committee did not come up with this idea. This idea was brought up during the presentation of the River Block building, and also at the executive committee. I had no intentions of our committee picking Venture's real, whatever, architect for it. However, and it was $70,000 because I voted against it. And I know it was $70,000, that's what the resolution said. The idea is, though, we put in a resolution that was passed unanimously that we would have Jason Gutenberg is the one that is going to follow this procedure. And he got his authorization from the executive committee. So it's a done deal. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. But to sit here and say that this is not $70,000 and it came from that committee that purchased the River Block building is wrong.
Any further comments or discussion on that issue? And on page 11 then, roughly 12. Any questions there? We have the Wood County Employee Wellness Board minutes of Wednesday, December 2nd, and 13, and 14. Supervisor Clendon?
Not on for this, but on page 15, there's an error. It don't make any difference. It's instead of 2015, it's 20115. Toward the bottom.
No, it's just the wrong year.
So you'd just like that corrected?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not wrong.
Where?
Since it's launch. No, that's good.
What page?
Bill, why don't you clarify?
I'll go.
Well,
Are you on page 15, Supervisor Clendon? Page 12.
Page 12, and it's Warren Pratt and Amy Colt.
Oh, okay. There's a typo there. They added an extra one about halfway down the page. On to about the 5th paragraph. We'll take care of that. We'll make sure we amend it in the minutes. Somebody make a note of that because I'll forget. All right.
Look out for the future.
Let's try page 15. The Human Resources Monthly Letter of Comments on 15. Maintenance Monthly Letter of Comments on 16. Treasurer's Report is 17. The Finance Department on 18. IT on 19. 20. Risk Management is 21. The county clerk is 22, and while I'm there, don't forget today is primary election day. Don't forget to vote. Don't forget anybody out there in the public, you need an ID this morning. Saw a lot of people fumbling for those. Brings us to page 23 in the packet, which is the first resolution we'll deal with today, brought forth by the executive committee.
This will be resolution 16-2-1 to formally adopt the my battery died. Hello. To formally adopt the control environment portion of the Wood County, it's died. To formally adopt the controlled environment portion of the Wood County accounting policy statement. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The policy will provide the guidelines and standards for financial record keeping and reporting for the county as a whole.
Okay, take my microphone back. You've heard a reading of the resolution. Do I have a motion to that effect? I have a motion by Zerflu, a second by Wagner. Any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion on the resolution? All right, seeing none, please vote. Got Hildy, yours isn't in yet. Dennis, yours still isn't in. There we go. And that resolution passed 17-1. Page 24 in your packet, as well as 25 is another resolution from the executive. Supervisor Ashbeck?
I got that wrong up now there.
You'd like to change that vote to affirmative? Okay, we will so know. All right. Page 24 in your packet, the tax deed resolution.
This will be Resolution 16-2-2 to accept offer of sale of tax deed property. Fiscal note, property number 1, offered amount of $5,000 minus the real estate taxes, special charges, publication fees, abstracting fees, and maintenance fees for a gain of $914.42. Property number 2, offered amount of $15,000 minus real estate taxes, publication fees, abstracting fees, and maintenance fees for a loss of $5,606.09. Property number 3, offered amount of $300 minus real estate taxes, publication fees, abstracting fees for a loss of $715.39. Property number 4, offered amount of $300 minus real estate taxes, special charges, publication, and abstracting fees for a loss of $7,626.63. Property number 5, offered amount of $500 minus real estate taxes, special charges, publication, and abstracting fees for a loss of $6,843.63.
A motion by Handler and a second by Hamilton. Any discussion on the resolution? Supervisor Clendon.
Again, this looks, those special fees, the county did not pay those. Correct?
Correct.
So why are they in there making it look like we lost a lot of money?
Peter, is that a law? Statute has to be in there? I don't know. Yeah, I understand your point, though. There's probably a reason statutorily that doesn't have to be listed. We'll check on it.
His battery's dead too.
Probably be better if all the batteries were. Supervisor Nelson.
I think my battery works. I'll just sit there.
Yeah, you want me to help you out?
Well, when you're 97, I guess you do need help. The one question I have, it doesn't really refer to this segment, but when does the sheriff's sale come into play with properties? Is it a similar situation to this, or is it a whole different set of circumstances?
Mr. Sheriff, you want to answer those?
It's not a sheriff's sale.
This isn't a sheriff's sale what you're doing here, and if you would have any questions on that, I'd be, it's a rather complicated process. I'd be happy to answer it.
I do have a question I was going to ask you after, but I wasn't relating this. I wasn't relating this to a sheriff's sale, but I was just trying to say is you have the tax deed situation, but where does the sheriff's sale come in? Like you say, it's a complicated, but just in a simple term, would you just say in 2 words?
Don't know.
As an elected official?
Don't know. I think don't know is probably the best answer. I can explain to you the process that we go through in terms of sheriff's sale, but I don't know that it's not relevant to the subject.
Supervisor, in short, those are typically bank foreclosures or letter foreclosures with the sheriff's sale. They're not county-owned properties at that point in time. That's probably the short answer. Two separate total tracks. And we'll set you up in appointment with the sheriff. You know, Wapaka County takes a whole county board meeting basically after they get through the budget the first of the year, and they bring in some celebrity speaker just to talk. And looking at the way this meeting's going, we probably should have done the same thing. Brought somebody in and lightened the mood here a little bit. All right.
Well, we've got to get the last kick at the cat as often as we can.
So we're ready to vote. Is there any other discussion on this resolution? Any other discussion? All right, please vote. That resolution passed unanimously. Thank you. Page 26 in your packet, minutes of the Health and Human Services Committee of January 28th, as well as 27. Community Care minutes, their board minutes from November 18th on 28, 29, and 30. North Central Community Action on 31 and 32. Any questions there? The Wood County Human Services Department report, starting with Director Redders, which include the Norwood reports on pages 33 through 37. 33 through 37. Any questions there? The Health Department's report, pages 38 through 41. 38 through 41. Give you a minute to go through the notes there. Page 42 in your packet, the report from Edgewater Haven. Page 43, the Veterans Service Officers Report. I'll be telling off Rock sitting back there. I know. Yeah, he's been busy lately with his own department in the legislature, and I do appreciate your work on that, Rock. That's page 43 and 44. In your packet, page 45, a resolution from the Health and Human Services as well as the Executive Committee.
This will be Resolution 16-2-3 to create 2.97 FTE FSET case manager positions. Fiscal note, anticipated wages and benefits for 2 new positions based upon a step 1 for a pay grade 7. Our wages and fringes totaling $123,507.04.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. I have a motion by Supervisor Fire and a second by Supervisor Rosa. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. That resolution passed 17-1. The next thing in your packet is a resolution that deals with the professional ladder that many of you have been briefed on. The reason I mentioned that first is pages 48 through 68 in the packet right behind it is the documentation for that. So just want to be aware of that if you ask questions or if you're in there before we read the resolution. It all pertains to the resolution. So I'd ask the clerk to please read the resolution on page 46.
This will be Resolution 16-2-4 to approve the implementation of the attached professional ladder for the social worker and human services professional. Fiscal note, within budget estimated costs, wages and fringes totaling $16,649.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Motion by Roser, second by Hinkle. Discussion on the resolution. Any discussion? Going once. Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My initial take on that before I read the documentation was I felt this was something that would provide a career ladder within the profession. But I didn't realize until I read the documentation how it was linked to the pay scales and some of the rubrics that were necessary to achieve those and what they were doing. I found some things in them that were very interesting. One was that the rubrics you would have to meet and the number of points you would have that each employee would have to achieve is an annual thing from their annual performance report. And if they didn't reach them in a given year, they could no longer remain at that pay grade or no longer maintain that certification. Worse yet, it said that if they did not reach that number of points, they would have to self-demote or disciplinary action could be taken. I thought that was just draconian to the extreme. The other thing I didn't like about this is, when they came to the Legislative and Judiciary Committee, and they talked about how they needed to do this to raise pay scales for their employees because we're losing employees to other counties. Well, I got a hold of the other counties' pay scales. And in some cases, it was true. In some cases, our scales were just slightly less. Not slightly, it depended on what step they were in, and believe me, in this profession, there are so many different variations, it's really hard to tell what's going on. I did notice that it's like in some cases, our social workers were maybe $1 or $1.50 per hour below those in Marathon County. But at the same time, our upper management level people were, well, the starting range for our director is $6,000 more per year than it is in Marathon County. It levels out at the higher range, but the starting level is even higher. If there are, we put together this pay scale. We worked on it. We worked hard to make it fair for the employees, and we worked diligently to try and make sure that we were within the market range for all of our employees. If something's wrong with it, we have the mechanism to fix that within the existing scale. We do not need to superimpose another scale on top of it. I can't vote for this thing. I can't agree to this at all. I think it's draconian in nature. I think it's unnecessary, and I think it destroys the work that we put into this thing. All of us put into this thing with blood, sweat, and tears, if you might recall, just 2 years ago. I just can't vote for this thing. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Clendening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was pretty proud of our budget hearing, and we even had a presentation by the Health and Human Services Committee asking us to vote for this budget, and it was unanimous. We as a county board got together and said, yes, we need money in there. Nothing was brought up about this professional ladder. And the same way with the River Block building. We got together as a county, what's best for our employees, what's best for the county, and a unanimous decision. And I like seeing the county board working together for Wood County, not just for a certain. I think there's good things in this ladder. However, I do also think that if it's so good, why didn't it come up at the time that the committee that was just spoken of, why did they not do it then? Because they didn't have the input. There was a lot of time and money I had spent on this. I'm voting against this, and however, though, I think if there's something that has to be done, I think that committee should be recreated, and this be for everybody. Definitely voted against it.
Further discussion? Further discussion? See the microphone being picked up. Supervisor Roser?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder, with the permission of the board, if we can allow Kathy Redder to speak about the historical perspective of this and the discussion that took place at the department level regarding this professional ladder.
You'd have to have the permission of the board. So, I'll try this by voice. Those who would like to allow Director Redder's report, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Let's try a show. You think it's a no, Dan?
I think it's a no, but you can show us.
Fair enough. Never sure who's yelling loud or who isn't. All right. Further discussion? Further discussion? All right, if I see no further discussion, I would ask you to please vote. That resolution failed 12-6. 12-6. All right, all those pages I talked about, the background information for that resolution takes me to page 69 in the packet, and that is the minutes of the Wood County Public Safety Committee, beginning at 69, 70, 71, and 72. The Civil Service Commission meeting of January 27th on 73. The Humane Officers Report on 74. Coroner's Report on 75. Various jail population numbers run from page 76 through 81. 76 through 81. Any questions there? Okay, page 82 in your packet, C minutes for February 3rd, as well as 83, 84, North Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board minutes of January 7th on 85, the ITBEC board meeting on 86 through 95, pages 86 through 95. We have reports from the activity reports from Land Conservation, starting with Shane 96 and going through page 99 from Land Conservation. UW Extension reports, starting on page 100 with Mr. Manley's, going through page 103. Judicial and Legislative Committee of January 19th on 104. 105 in the attendance sheet. Their meeting from February 5th on 106, 107, and 8. Sign-in sheet from that meeting on 109. Page 110, minutes of their Water Protection Subcommittee of January 15th. Supervisor Ashbeck, then Nelson, and I think I even saw another one after that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see the goal of the committee, they're talking about clean water. I was to the speaking contest in Stevens Point Friday afternoon, and this one gal from Rhinelander had a speech she called the Salt Demon, about all the damage that's being done by the use of salt, not only on the roads, but in the local areas. And she said there are a couple counties using the brine mixture now made out of a product from the dairy industry. And at the same time, there's something here that we haven't heard of yet since we've been doing on this. It's what you call regular lime, ag lime. The farmers use it for years around the buildings and in the barns. It has the same bonding effect as sand on ice. Some of these people in the city areas could be using this instead of salt, but it would protect their lawn instead of turning their lawn yellow on the sides. And at the same time, they could use this product, test their soil, test their lawn, test it in the summer, and use it to neutralize their soil that they could get by with a lot less phosphorus fertilizer. So I was wondering if this committee is going to work into something like this or not. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Nelson.
Thank you. I'll stand up on my own. Our next meeting was scheduled for the 24th on a Wednesday. We had to reschedule that to the next day on Thursday. And if anybody is really interested in this clean water situation, we're going to have a presentation by Sean Wischerfening on the clean water situation, and I think it would be quite enlightening to see just where we are and what the situation is. Thank you.
so check your meeting notices. All right, still on page 110. Any other comments there? Thought I saw a different hand up before. Same committee, their minutes from January 29th on page 111. Page 112 in your packet, our monthly update from Corp Counsel Kassenholz, and that goes 112, 13, and 14. Child Support Agencies report on 115. Victim Witness Services report on 116. Supervisor Clendenning's activity report on 17 and 118. Notice of injury and claim on page 119. There's an invoice on 120. And that takes me to page 121 and a resolution from the Judicial and Legislative Committee.
This will be Resolution 16-2-5 to obtain County Board approval as required under Statute 59.52 sub 28 to contract with the Wisconsin Department of Revenue for the collection of unpaid debt under Statute 71.93 sub 8. Fiscal note unknown, the Department of Revenue State Debt Collection Agency has statutory authority for the use of collection tools not available to private collection agencies, which is expected to result in an increase in collections. However, the amount of that increase cannot be estimated.
I have a motion to approve by Supervisor Hamilton. I have a second by Clendenning. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. Donna, you're still in.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
Thank you very much. That one passed unanimously, 18-0. Page 122 in your packet, a second resolution, this one coming from the Judicial and Legislative as well as the Executive Committee.
This will be Resolution 16-2-6 to amend the 2016 budget for Clerk of Courts for the purpose of funding the cost of new equipment. Fiscal note to transfer $13,000 from available balance in contingency to the Clerk of Courts. At the time of this request, the funds available in contingency are $443,800. The adjustment to the budget totals $13,000.
I have a motion by Zerflu, a second by Nelson. Any discussion on this resolution? Please vote. Again, that resolution passed 18-0. Page 123 in your packet, minutes of the Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee, beginning on page 123 and going through page 128. Give you a minute to go through all those. 123 through 128. We have various reports from those departments, beginning with the summary of firewood usage and future needs estimate, which is on 129, and running through 138. Any question on any of those? It ends with the 138 current project update, the Highway Department. Okay, page 139 in your packet is a resolution from the HERC Committee.
This will be Resolution 16-2-7 to approve an amendment to the Wood County Wildlife Area Lease Agreement. Fiscal note, Wood County receives $16,311.10 for rental of the land under the lease based on 90 cents per acre payment rate.
Again, you've heard the reading of the resolution. I have a motion from Supervisor Hamilton, a second by Supervisor Bride. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Okay, please vote. Peter, there you go. Resolution passed 18-0. Page 140 and 141, we've typically taken these together unless there's objection. One is for to become eligible for maintenance monies for snowmobiles, the other one's for ATVs. Anybody object to us taking these two together? Okay.
This will be 16-2-8 to become eligible for maintenance monies on the existing Wood County ATV trail in designated area of Township 22 North, Range 35 East, Section 31 and 32 for the 2016-2017 season. Fiscal note, no cost to Wood County, total reimbursement from the State Aid Registration Fund, and donated services by the Central Wisconsin ATV Riders Club. The next resolution will be 16-2-9 to become eligible for snowmobile trail maintenance monies on the existing trails on county and private lands for the 2016-2017 snowmobile season. Fiscal note, no cost to Wood County, total reimbursement from state snowmobile aid.
I have a motion by Clendenning, a second by Lightnum. Any discussion on either of these resolutions? Any discussion? Please vote. That resolution passed 18-0. Page 142 in your packet, resolution from the Highway Infrastructure Committee.
This will be ordinance number 16-2-10 to establish an ordinance whereby the Highway Commissioner is authorized to impose temporary speed reductions in areas of road construction. Fiscal note, unknown. There is an undeterminable savings associated with the increased safety of highway workers. There will be costs attendant to creating and maintaining the temporary signage.
Motion by Hamilton, second by Zerflu. Sorry, Marianne, your hand got obstructed by Ed. Ed, keep your head down so I can see.
Question.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion.
I have a question.
Yep.
So I just wanted to understand this a little bit better. Don't we have all kinds of state laws now about speed limits in construction zones? And why don't we just springboard off of those state laws? Is this a duplicative thing? Because I thought those were pretty, they're double the fines and all of that. Can somebody just explain to me the need for this ordinance if we've got these stringent state laws?
Supervisor Zerflu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we might go off table.
Can you use your microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought everybody could hear me. No.
They can.
Sorry, Mr. Ross. I would like permission, if it's okay with the body, to go off table. Roland Locke's here, the engineer from Highway, and he probably could explain why we don't follow, or we follow state law, but sometimes you'll have a state law, but the local governing body has to also basically adopt to use it type thing. So if nobody objects, I'd like Roland to speak.
Is there an objection to having Roland address that question posed by Supervisor Rosar?
No, there's no.
Roland, go ahead and go to the microphone if you would, please.
Is this on?
If it's green, it's...
There we go. The state allows the county highway commissioner to temporarily lower speed zones on local, county, and state highways. And they're the only person in the county that's allowed to do that. Most counties already have this ordinance. We do not have it on our record. That's all. We're just asking to put this officially on the record. We're not changing any laws. We're not changing any other statutes or policies. It's just allowing us to put this in our policy to allow the commissioner to do that.
For me,
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just...
I couldn't figure out what it's based on.
Yeah, we've got so many ordinances.
Are there any other... We're putting it right.
Yep, basically, putting it right.
All right, any other questions on this resolution? Any other discussion? Please vote. And the resolution passed 18-0. Starting on page 145, and then 6 and 7 is the ADRC minutes from December 10th in your packet. Their Finance Committee minutes, same meeting on 148. The McMillan Memorial Library Board of Trustees on 149 and 150. Their January 20th meeting on 151 and 152. South Central Library System on 153 and 154. UW Commission meeting, starting with the one on November 12th on page 155 and 6. Their minutes from November 16th on 157. Minutes from December 9th on 158. December 14th on 159. And they've met a lot in regard to the STEM project you heard about earlier in the construction of that. And that brings us to page 160 in the packet, and extremely important resolution brought forth by the County Board Chair.
This will be Resolution 16-2-11 to approve the Wood County Fire Warden list. Fiscal note, no fiscal impact.
Motion by Fire, second by Wagner. Any discussion on that one? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed? That carries unanimously. We don't have a lot of applicants for that position, so that's a pretty easy one to take care of. All right, that runs us through the packet. Like I said before, today is election day. Get out there and vote. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board this morning? I have a couple of things. Oh, geez, my special order of business.
Jason, what happened?
If I wouldn't have had a bunch of hands waved at me, we'd have been adjourned and you'd have been standing back there going, Supervisor Zerflu, real quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to wrap my pea brain around it, with the governor's recent signing the civil service legislation, how does that affect our Civil Service Commission? I see their minutes from the meeting were on page 73. Do you know?
Let me bring Rock forward.
Okay, thank you.
I just back on. All right, I just researched this for our association this morning. So nothing in that bill changes Chapter 59, which is counties and the commission, or the only part of Chapter 63, which is the county commission, hiring commissioners to do the law enforcement and stuff. The only thing that changes is when veterans preference and how veterans preference is added. Does not change anything at the county level. This only changes stuff at the state level.
Good, thank you.
Your concurrence with that, Corp Counsel Cassie? Okay, thank you. Jason, I apologize for that. I had 2 stars on both sides of your name there, and I still missed it.
No problem at all.
To the end, because I know you have some other business that might occur with your updates.
I just thought you were saving the best for last.
I am.
I almost forgot the best.
Okay, I don't have a slide presentation today. I've been encouraged to keep it short, so I'm going to try to do that. I do have a handout, though. If you could hand it around, just a map of River Block.
Share.
I just want to start off by introducing myself again. I'm Jason Greenberg. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director, and your River Block tour guide. So, been a lot of activity last. Can you hear me okay? Is this better? Okay, I'll maybe try to readjust this here. And I'm also heading up the River Block Advisory Committee, which is made up of a variety of departments that are helping out with the move over to River Block, as well as some transition in the courthouse here. And as it was pointed out earlier by Supervisor Clendenning, we report to the Executive Committee. And we have been providing updates on a pretty regular basis. Every executive committee we're on the agenda for an update, and we'll also be providing updates to the full county board until the planning process is done, and maybe even until the transition to River Block is completed. I am going to have, I know some questions probably, so I'm going to have some time after the brief update here for some questions. And also want to invite any supervisors over to River Block after the meeting today. I will have a tour there, and I will divide groups up so we don't have any quorums. But if you could meet there within a half-hour county board, I would like to take you through a tour. Any supervisors that haven't been through. Recently, there's been a lot of activity at River Block. Pretty much on a daily basis, things are taking place. So if you call me any day, I'll look at a report on what's happening there. And I think things are going very well, going very smooth, and it sounds like, according to the architect and our consultant, that we may actually be able to bump up our timeline and get things done sooner than planned. I think originally the timeline that we were looking at was having things, the planning process done by June, and we may be able to bump that up by another month. We should know more by the end of the week how the timeline's going to shake out. One thing we know about River Block right now is that we are moving human services over there, and we're moving health department over there. And we've been talking through the advisory committee and how that can happen, and working through the details on that. We also know that in the courthouse here, we're going to be moving probably dispatch and IT. We're not sure if they're going to stay in the courthouse here or if they'll move over to River Block. At this point in time, it kind of looks like that they'll be sticking around in the courthouse here for a variety of reasons. As was stated earlier, too, we did sign a contract with Venture Architects. It was a contract for $43,450 to help out the planning process of transitioning to River Block. I know there's some questions, if do we need a consultant? And after being involved with this for a few weeks, it's an emphatic yes. We could do this on our own, but it would literally take years to do the transition over there. And I don't think it would be done the right way. I'm very confident with Venture Architects. They have a lot of trust in the county here. And in my mind, they did a great job on the Space Needs Recommendations report that we're working with. Also, to get Venture Architects up to speed, there's literally no downtime. From day one, they've been up to speed because they've been very familiar with Wood County and helped out with the recommendations report in the past. So we've been talking to Venture Architects and John King. They're pretty much on a daily basis. They have a lot of the building schematics and things like that they're looking over right now, trying to get to understand that building a little bit better. And we're going to be kicking off our work with them pretty much on Thursday. They'll be on site in the morning with engineers walking the building. They'll be talking to county staff and trying to find out what's going to work at River Block. We'll also be meeting with city inspectors on Thursday, so a pretty good idea of what we're going to need to do in the building to be compliant with local building and fire code in the remodel process here. Kind of a laundry list of things that have been done. We recently had training on the card reader system over there, so we can exit the building and enter the building whenever we'd like, which is very helpful for us getting over that in planning process. We're not sure what we're going to do with that card reading system. It's a new system, but it's not really, doesn't work with the one we have in the courthouse here, so we may be looking at changing everything out in the future here. We've had system staff involved very heavily. Amy's been very, very helpful. They're looking at the options of getting fiber over there, because if we have staff over there, we want to make sure we have get data over there back and forth efficiently. So we're looking at running fiber possibly directly from the courthouse over there. Not sure the cost yet, but in the future, near future, we should have some numbers to work with. Been looking at furniture over there. Anybody who's been through there, we have a massive amount of furniture. I think it's a great thing we have that, but it's going to prove to be a challenge moving forward. I think what we're going to end up doing is probably getting rid of the stuff we're not going to use, because I know like health department's probably going to be taking a lot of their newer furniture over there in the transition, and possibly the same with human services as well. But it's really a good problem to have. I mean, because I think we'll be saving a lot of money on furniture down the road as we're moving staff over there. I've been spending quite a bit of time on tours of the building. I think I lost track of the amount of times I've been over there for tours. And we pretty much have run probably over 150 people through the building. Pretty much all county staff, a lot of human services staff, health department staff, and other affected departments. Other staff and supervisors are just very curious about the project. For me, the tours have been very beneficial, because every time I take groups through, I get feedback and things are pointed out that we can use in the planning process here. So it's really been a valuable experience for me, as well as the people that have been on the tours. And like I said, after the county board meeting today, any supervisors that haven't been through the building, we're going to have a tour over there, so meet over there within a half hour. But talking in the process of the River Block planning, one topic that always comes up is parking. We're going to need a lot of parking spots over there. In the map that I handed out there, you can see that we have the River Block parking just kind of northwest of the building identified. We've got 16 spots there. That's shown the lower right inset. Did Lance, did you get a copy of the map?
No, but I know what you're talking
Okay, I'm sorry.
I've been there several times.
I'll get him one, poor guy.
Sorry about
I've
that.
actually really been there, so probably don't need that.
So we have 16 spots directly adjacent to the building. Those aren't city spots. Those are spots that we have under lease with Mead Witter Foundation. And then we have a spot northwest of there, just south of Jackson Street, where there's 100 spots. So that gives us about 116 spots to work with. So we are going to be short a little bit. If you look at in the upper left-hand corner in the bigger map there, there's an Elks Lodge parking lot that's identified with the possibility of 60 spots. We are probably going to be talking to the city about that at some point in time. Negotiations have not begun, and we will not begin negotiations until we have the go-ahead from the county board. But I will be talking to the city and the Elks about the possibility of that for county use. One reason that the city is looking to give up that lot is because it needs to be resurfaced, and the cost of that resurfacing is somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $75,000. I have been talking to Roland in the highway department, Roland Hawk, to get some ideas if the county could possibly help out with these projects and reduce some of the cost of resurfacing. But you'll likely hear in the next few weeks, at some point, if we are going to initiate or try to initiate negotiations with the city on that lot. And that would come to the board, I believe, before we could do that. And in addition to that, we're also looking at other downtown parking options. The city has requested that I meet with them and just talk about other ideas that they have and kind of make sure that we can accommodate parking in the downtown area. One thing I have been doing as well is meet with the local businesses in the area, just trying to give them a contact for the county if they have questions or concerns. I have kind of forewarned them that the parking that they're using right now on the Mead Witter block there is going to be probably blocked off towards the end of the year when we occupy the building. And there's mixed reaction on that. Some of the businesses are very excited about us being down there because they feel it'll generate more traffic. And if you're concerned about the possible parking concerns downtown. So that's a common theme that we'll be working through here. As I mentioned earlier, we have an advisory committee that I work with. And the advisory committee is made up of staff from systems, dispatch, human services, health department, maintenance, and parks and forestry. And we're kind of working as a group trying to address a lot of smaller issues. And we'll be working with a consultant on some of those things. And it's kind of a brainstorming group, really coming together to bring ideas to the executive committee. And, so the executive committee can act on things here. And as I mentioned earlier, we have our kickoff meeting tomorrow with Venture Architects. So, in the next few weeks, we should have a better timeline as far as things go. And we're going to continue more tours at River Block, continue to meet with the downtown neighbors. And again, with that furniture, I think I'm going to try to do an inventory strategy for that so that doesn't hold us up in the construction process. And we're also going to be continuing to address the parking needs in the downtown. That's probably our biggest issue right now that we're facing. And I think that issue probably is heightened by peak use at the building there in the future. Say, for example, if Human Services has large meetings there where 20, 30 people come in, a lot of those people need parking. If that's in the same day the health department has something going, you may run into problems. Also, a lot of the staff have expressed the need for loading and unloading areas because they come and go from the building frequently, and a lot of times they're carrying a variety of things. So those are issues that we're going to need to address. I think that was pretty brief there. Do we have time for questions?
Just call him, Jason.
Supervisor Rosar?
I have a couple of things I'd like you to add to your list. We have talked frequently about having a county boardroom in that building, so I would like for that to at least be talked about to see if some space could be dedicated to a county boardroom where we would have a place to meet and have all the technology that we need and things like that to get us out of the courthouse. So that's one thing. The second thing that I'd like you to add to the list is a discussion about a centralized receptionist. you know, if you've toured that building, you know that there's a really nice space there for a reception area. And I'm wondering if it might not be advantageous to have a centralized receptionist. I don't know how things are going to flow, you know, once we get departments in there, but I can see a real advantage of having somebody kind of be a gatekeeper, open doors, you know, do some secretary, no, but that's not even the word anymore, they're not secretaries, but administrative assistant type of things, and then serve that role in various departments, and then be the greeter for the county. I know at one time we had a receptionist that was kind of a greeter in this building, and then that position was eliminated, but with the layout of that building, it might be a good idea to go back to that kind of a way of people entering the building. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess those are both ideas that actually kind of came up in the tours. I can't remember who brought them up, but the county board idea, I don't know how much actual need there is for it, but that idea is on a list of possible uses for excess space in the building, along with some other things like, you know, additional meeting rooms, that type of thing. The idea of a wellness room has been thrown out there in the building. So we are kind of keeping a laundry list of possible ideas for some of that undesignated space in the building. And really, right now, with the layout of that building, I think it's only natural to look at that, having that front reception area. I'm not sure how that's going to shake out in the planning process as we move forward, but right now, it seems like a real natural fit for the layout of that structure. So. Mr. Wagner?
On this map, you laid out Baker Street parking. You didn't indicate anything on the Avon Street parking, and you did also on that there's a small parking lot on East Jackson and 3rd as possible parking spaces also. They aren't delineated on here. Was there a reason for that, or are they being eliminated from your thought process, or what?
No, this map was created for a prior meeting, and I think it was just to show the distance, really, of Elks lot compared to Baker Street. Pretty much on a daily basis, there's available spots in the Baker Street lot, but you don't really see that as often on the Avon Street block or Avon Street lot. And we could add those in the future just for reference.
One of the reasons I remember making a suggestion, which was somewhat ridiculed in the meetings, that maybe, you know, we're not going to be losing any employee parking space around the courthouse, and that those lots are still available to us, and that maybe in order to get them across the bridge in the winter, maybe we should run a shuttle service back and forth during certain hours.
I like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that definitely is one of the options that's being thrown out there, is to have people at River Block park in either Baker Street lot or Avon. I can tell you it's not a real popular option to throw out there to staff that might be working there, especially this time of year when you have to walk across the bridge and the wind's blowing and snowing out there. I think in summer that might be a more appealing option. You know, the busing option is definitely doable. I think logistically that might be a little bit challenging. And the one thing that's challenging too with a lot of the health staff and human services staff, they come and go frequently throughout the day. You know, so they be coming and going 5 or 6, 8, 10 times throughout the day.
That's something that you know, we'll need to find out how many of those need to do it, and reserve some of those 100 spaces for them. 100 spaces there for them by special permit. Right. But if it's an all-day parking, then the shuttle bus idea will work out. I mean, there are ways we can handle that. There are ways we can address it.
I would agree. I would agree. If there's any more ideas regarding parking, please let me know. I think one thing that could help the parking situation out for the courthouse campus, though, is maybe the possibility of closing Avon Street off. And that's something that's been thrown out there, a few times along the way.
Go ahead, Bill.
Mr. President.
Yes. You didn't mention anything about the annex that I can see from here, or you didn't. Well, let's go with the annex first.
Okay. What do you want to know what the annex is?
Well, what's the timetable on that?
Okay. Well, the city has requested of me that I try and get on the agenda taking action on the annex, but that would be a sale of property, so we'd have to go through the proper procedure of making that happen. I talked to Council Cass knows about that. I don't want to put them on the spot today. But we are anticipating that we'll be moving on the annex building in some way, shape, or form, probably in the next few months, depending on when the executive committee will allow it on their agenda. With that being said, an email has gone out to departments that have things stored at the annex building, and a request has been made to take action on disposing of those items or relocating them. And that may actually, some of that may actually transition to the river block building too, because some of the records stored at the annex could be stored at river block or in the courthouse here in space that's vacated here.
Okay, the other thing I have is the health department. And do they look like they're going to be the first ones in? Because I heard nothing about needing bathrooms, special arrangements for that.
The timeline in regards to who moves there and when they move there hasn't been nailed down yet. What I've been telling people as far as the timeline is that we hope to have people in there by the end of the year. It's a little early to say exactly when yet. I think over the next few weeks we'll have a clear idea. Right now the health department has a lease with Aspirus, and they can pretty much be there as long as they would like, but Aspirus does have, within reason, Aspirus does have other ideas for the space they're in. So Human Services is not quite in the same situation because we own most of that property and have some of their property under lease. But so as far as who goes over there first and second, that really hasn't been decided. Health department does have some specialized needs with plumbing though. They do have exam rooms that need to have running water and sinks. And so we're thinking now that they may be a better fit for the first floor of the building than Human Services. I think up until yesterday, everybody anticipated that Human Services would be on the first floor and Health Department on the second. But after a discussion yesterday with the advisory committee, we might try flipping them around to save costs on the project. We could put the Health Department exam rooms on the first floor, probably with minimal architectural reconstruction on that floor and without having to go into expensive plumbing projects. Whereas the Human Services, they need more bathrooms with flush toilets, and that would be easier to accommodate on the second floor and probably save some money there. So I talked to the architect, he's going to get back to us on how that possibly could save us money down the road. But.
So when you say we, do you mean this group of people that are department heads and other people? Is that the we we're talking about, or is the we we're talking about the $43,000 we're spending on the architect?
Okay, what happened yesterday is I had an advisory committee meeting with the advisory group, and in our discussion, they made the recommendation of having health department, or the option of having the health department at first floor looked at, and Human Services on second. So then I called up the architect and explained to him that that's an option that we were looking at, to get back to me, as far as the possible cost impacts or cost difference with that. So it's not set in stone yet. We're in the planning process as far as the layout. The layout hasn't even really begun with the building. The kickoff starts on Thursday, so that's when a lot of those wheels will start turning.
So there's no chance of us notifying Riverview Hospital or whoever after that when we move, do we have to give them 90 days notice? What is it? Just nothing done. We're just going to wait, see if they kick us out. If they don't kick us out, then maybe we'll get in there at the end.
No, I think we plan to be a better tenant than that. When we have a more clear timeline, we're going to communicate that with them so they can plan accordingly. I mean, we want them to be successful too in what they're doing in town. So, but we do have a little bit of flexibility.
This is the same concern we have if we were building a building right here.
That's right.
What the timelines would be, how we would transition, when we would transition, meeting construction schedules. And in regard to the cost, whether we contracted individually with those HVAC engineers, with the structural engineers, and everybody else involved, I'll guarantee you that you would need that expertise somewhere above and beyond our maintenance department. So we're trying to take all of that information and put it together at this time. The department heads as to what they need, balance that with what the architects and the engineers say is feasible and doable at the least cost to the taxpayer to have the most effective building. And none of those would be any different if we were digging a hole right here, right now, and spending $30 or $40 million.
Right.
So to answer your question a little bit, Bill, a little bit of it is up in the air as we start to pull all the information together. We're in an information gathering process right now.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add too is, as supervisors, you're welcome to contact me anytime if you have questions or ideas or concerns, and we'll feed that into the process here moving forward. I mean, a lot of the ideas that came up that you shared with me that when you went to River Block, those are being shared with the consultant as we move forward.
We didn't even know there was going to be a meeting yesterday. So what do you mean we're involved? How did I or anybody else know that you had a meeting about this building? Or who cares?
Well,
Does that have to?
I guess the
I'm
advice.
upset about it.
Well,
I'm going to tell you.
let me answer it. At this point, I'm not exactly sure where you're going, what input you would like, till we get until you gather all that information, have the ability to ascertain what is contained in that information. What am I missing? What input would we have in the process at this point? So we make sure we don't miss that.
I guess is there a desire to have all the advisory committees open to the public?
No. That would be
No.
Supervisor Curran?
How about notifying the board if they want to attend?
I could do that in the future. And to be quite honest, this advisory committee was scheduled on short notice. I just put notice on Friday to try and get something going here before we have our kickoff meeting on Thursday. So, and
This would be no different than, in my mind, a committee meeting. I don't think we have to be there to change what's going on, but at least we can get a sense of how we're moving on the process.
Right, right.
Can I ask a question, just so I clarify, Bill, is that what you were thinking?
Yes.
That thought process? Okay.
I would
Let
direct.
me go to Peter real quick.
Thank you. You do need to be careful of the open meetings law violation, so there's nothing wrong with having supervisors show up, but if there is a majority of the committee that would, this would impact, which would be any committee, then there might be a need for one or more of those supervisors to say, okay, I'll talk to somebody later or find out later, but pick a representative or two to participate in such meetings. And the other point I wanted to make, since I've got the microphone, if I could, Mr. Chairman, go on to a related issue. Jason came to my office the other day and asked me to put together a resolution such that there would be authority granted to the executive committee, I understand, to oversee negotiations for parking lots and related things in conjunction with the old health department building across the street. And so if he wants, and there's a need in the next month to enter into those type of discussions, it would comply with your rules if in fact you waived your rules, waived Rule 42 to allow that discussion, recognizing that it would only be for a month if in fact that's needed, and then the resolution would come in next month. It's not like there could be any final deals or anything like that, but I think that Jason may feel, words in your mouth, I would feel a little hamstrung as far as entering into any kind of discussions with the city as far as parking, with the building across the street, raising, those types of things, without either waiving this rule or passing that resolution. So we'll get the resolution for you next month, but if it needs to be dealt with before then, you might want to waive the rule at this point in time for that 1 month period. Just a thought on that.
That gives us some stuff to try. Supervisor Wagner?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree that if time is of the essence, it would be best to give him give the executive committee that authority now. Is it appropriate to even make a motion to waive that Rule 42 at this point? Yes. Sir, I would like to move to waive Rule 42 for the purpose of discussing negotiations for parking as it pertains to the old annex.
We have a motion by Supervisor Wagner, a second by Supervisor Hengler. Is there discussion on that motion? Is there discussion on that motion? Supervisor Zerflu?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear the whole thing. I have my bad ear towards the distinguished gentleman from Marshfield. Could you repeat that, Ed, please?
Grab the mic here.
Just because I was reprimanded for not using the mic, I think you should use the mic also.
Thank you. Do you want me to repeat the motion?
Sure.
I move that Rule 42 be waived in order to give the executive committee the authority to negotiate for parking and other matters relating to the old annex. Did I leave anything out?
Actually, the two things that could be negotiated are parking downtown, specifically with the Elks lot, and negotiations on the annex building.
Disposition of the annex.
Right, correct.
Right.
Was that your
two things?
Was that your understanding of the motion, Supervisor Hendler? You seconded it. Yes, it was. Supervisor Zerflu, are you?
I'm okay. I'm just ready for discussion, sir.
Supervisor Clendenin.
Yes, sir. I'm opposed to this. It's just a hurry up thing. I have to think about it. You know, to give this authority to the executive committee, my idea is they all think alike. They're all going to say yes to anything. Well, that's just the way I feel about it. And the fact is, there's the devil in the detail here. I don't think we should be negotiating about that annex because people on the executive committee have stood up and said to the city that we're still interested in the Market Street project. We're still interested in renting from you. I don't know how we can be. So if these promises are going to be made, I don't think they should be made, and they're part of the negotiations. I know some people that I talk to are willing to,
Let me just clarify the motion. The motion gives them the ability to talk to him. It does not give them the ability to act on any numbers or any proposals. Just the ability to talk. So
I'll call for the question.
Clarify your, okay.
I'll call for the question.
Well, I'm going to ignore that for just a second. Is there any...
You gotta get that purple off, man. That's all there is to it.
I don't want to cut anybody off. I appreciate it. I just want to cut anybody off. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These updates are great. I really appreciate them. As far as a advisory committee, who best to know the day-to-day ins and outs, but the people whose lives are going to affect the working lives. I have no problem with that. What I have the problem with, and until this was clarified that the executive committee cannot enter into any official doings, that put up another red flag. I do have a red flag in trying to say a little bit of probably what Bill was getting at. There's $46,000 spent on an architect. Attaboy. I think these people should be brought in. They're the professionals. But I had no say on that. And the second thing being, now we're going to talk about the annex building here in Salem. And nothing against you, Jason, but you said we'd get it on the executive committee agenda. I would hope that when that property goes up for sale or whatever happens, you need board authority, right? I guess I'm starting to have a problem. This is kind of like when I put my foot in my mouth a year ago about I don't have a problem with the executive committee, just the makeup, and this is what I really meant by that. It just seems like there's some things that go on, and not that my voice really is all that important, but I would like a chance to kick the can. I feel a lot better now getting that off my chest.
Well, no action can be taken without board approval. There's just the ability to talk to them and see what they want.
But
all right, further discussion.
What about the $46,000 we spent on the architect? I didn't have a vote on that, or did I some other time down the line I missed it?
You mean to hire the architect?
We approve moving forward, and those are dollars that are in our building and maintenance accounts to deal with those types of issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Wagner, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I know that there's some people that have a great deal of difficulty with the amount of authority that the executive committee has, and I heard Mr. Clendenin, and I heard him speak about his basic distrust. And you know, Lord Acton said, you know, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, but people forgot what else he said. He said, but ultimately somebody must govern. The executive committee is here to govern. Ultimately, they must. Ultimately, we have to trust somebody. And that's what we have to do in this case. And I have no problem with the executive committee working on this.
And I think to clarify too, up to this point, none of those decisions came, other than that, came from the committee as a group. It all came from our building, our assessment committee, our utilization committee, and then the search committee that went over and got us the details to procure the property. So is there any other discussion on suspending the rules to allow Jason and the committee at least have a start the conversation? All right, all in favor of that motion? We got that up there on the board?
Well,
No?
What's up on the board was the last resolution that we had was we took as a voice vote. So I'm not sure that those people that have put their input in here, are you voting on this motion, or were your votes input here on
the fire warden?
On the fire warden thing?
The fire warden.
That's the fire warden? Okay, we'll clear this.
It's so long we forgot. Here we have it.
it's a hot issue.
I know it's not going to be unanimous, so
We can have a voice vote, we're not spending any money.
you could, but I want to make sure that nobody says it wasn't fair.
There we go.
Okay, please vote. That resolution passed 14-4. Okay. Jason, I guess you can have the conversation. Okay. All right. Is there any other questions on the update at all? Marion?
Thank you. I just want to tell you that when Jerry Bach was mayor, we had plans for that parking lot to put another layer of parking there. The plans are all there. But when Mary Jo became mayor, they were put back someplace. I don't know where they are. But there's plans to update that parking lot. It's all done. So something to look forward to.
Okay.
Supervisor Holcamp, we're aware of those plans, and actually they make sense for having another layer of parking in that lot. We're somewhat restricted though by our agreement with the Mead-Witter Foundation and what we can do on that property. And I don't believe a parking structure of any kind would be agreeable at this point in time. I wish it would. And even if it was, I think it would be a costly project too. We'd have to look at the cost of it. But it's a great idea. I just don't know how feasible it would be.
I think as we address parking, and as we look at some of those distances, and I obviously have seen some of these numbers before, the walk from most of those parking lots to the building, when I was talking to some people in some of the more urban areas, were somewhat laughable. They said, even you got free parking closer than a par 4 golf course hole, less than 400 yards. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, we're not used to it. Wisconsin rails. But we can maybe incorporate that into our wellness program, and we won't have to make as many laps to the courthouse. So we'll work on that. Anything else on the update? Anything else on the update? Okay. Or is everybody happy they're hearing these? I've heard that from a few people.
We're happy.
Okay. And to address, I think Supervisor Hamilton, Supervisor Curry made the point, and Supervisor Clendenning, if we can notice those meetings because somebody wants to sit in those, there's certainly no objection there in that respect. Okay? All right, anything else that needs to come before this board? Hildy, is that it?
Yes. Happy birthday, sir.
Well, that's tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not getting older tomorrow, and it will only be I told my wife, 59 and 13/12. So, anyway, appreciate it, but thank you very much. Is there any other business? Supervisor Hamilton. Motion to adjourn, second by? Second by? Hankel. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.